Going back to Nepal is going to be really difficult and emotionally taxing for Lara. Maybe we should just spend a couple hours at home first before we take that plane over.
Palatial Croft Manor.
Funny you should make a Batman joke, actually. So Lara has always had some kind of estate that's been inherited to her. This version of Croft Manor is specifically based off the one from the Angelina Jolie films, which itself is based on Hatfield House in Hertfordshire.
Hey, Lara.
Hello, Zip.
Interesting.
So, Roy, I know you work in IT. How accurate are all these sticky notes everywhere?
Yeah. Nowadays it's more what's in your team's calendar. But that's very accurate note taking for IT.
So in the earlier Tomb Raider games and the core design ones, Croft Manor was more of a tutorial hub with a few hidden secrets. This one is more kind of like a mini Metroidvania almost, where Lara doesn't start out with any of her equipment. We have to find it hidden around the house.
Interesting. Well, that really does look like the stairwell from the movie too, yeah.
It's pretty much identical. But over here, we have Winston the butler, who we've seen a couple of times before. He is one of the few side characters who has been carried over directly from the original series. Although, as you can see, he appears to have de-aged about 60 years.
He's standing up straight. I'm proud of him.
And as if to hammer that point home, we're actually going to be playing the Tomb Raider 2 version of Croft Manor for a bit.
Oh my god, yeah, I know. He was hunched over.
Welcome back. After that grueling business last year, I decided to build this assault course to hone my skills and learn some new ones.
Hello, Winston. What's your secret? You're not going to look 120 anymore in 2006. I don't know how you do it, man.
Feel free to explore the rest of the house and gardens.
So in the original Tomb Raider, Croft Manor was just like a couple of rooms, basically put together as a little tutorial section. It was only in Tomb Raiders 2 and 3 that it became this huge extra map. So in Tomb Raider 2 specifically, one of the more well-known Easter eggs in all of gaming. First of all, Winston doesn't just stand there. He does, in fact, follow us around.
Just turn the corner and Hans Moleman from The Simpsons is standing
exactly.
Yep.
That's a great comparison. I never thought of it that way. So here's a bit of the inside of Croft Manor. Now, you probably already knew this, but for those of you, who are younger, who may not remember, there is a particularly cruel trick that we could pull on dear old Winston. We're in the kitchen and the servants' quarters next to it. And among the features of this elderly state house is a walk-in freezer. I am, by the way, playing the remastered version, which allows you to switch instantly between these, sharper versions of the original graphics and a completely brand new set of texture work, which looks amazing. But just to help sell the illusion a bit more, I'm using the original version.
I can't help but notice that in the original version, as was the style in the 90s, the scale is just completely off.
Well, remember, with the way the original games worked, the scale had to fit like a specific grid style.
Right.
Anyway, you probably already knew about this, but just in case, you can in fact lock Winston in the freezer.
Oh, thank God.
It's a trick that has been referenced multiple times in the later games. But maybe there's something like within the freezer antecedent or whatever it's called in the freezer itself that has caused him to go from being 200 years old to someone's sexy grandpa.
It's like the hot tub time machine.
Yeah. And this is our artifact for the level. It is the Croft family shield. The design for this, as I mentioned, based on Hatfield House in Hertfordshire, has appeared in multiple different films. And you made the Batman joke earlier. This is actually the basis for Wayne Manor as it appeared in the Tim Burton Batman movies.
Ah.
I don't know what to make of this, but it's probably important. There is no real, end objective per se. This is all about exploration. And much like the other levels, though, there is a gold artifact that will require a bit of extra work. So we're going to be getting everything we can in one go. We picked up the grapple earlier, and obviously we don't have the binoculars or the flashlight yet, which we'll need.
So the third time you go through that hallway is when the dogs jump through the window, right?
Well, yeah, there's a loop, of course.
Yeah.
So this is Lara's bedroom over to the right, as well as some, I don't know. I do not know my stately British manners well enough to really understand the architecture of this place, but anyway, here's Lara's room. There's a couple artifacts in here, and I have alluded several times to kind of the really borked translucent work on textures. Well, check this shit out.
You what?
I don't know what's going on here. Something about the quality of the translucency here causes all of the texture to disappear. It's just Lara's gray boxed model. Lara also has a walk-in closet over here. Among the various unlockables that we've been acquiring are various costumes. Unfortunately, you can't wear any costume you want on the first time you play a level. It's only on replays. And it's a shame because there's a lot of neat costumes here. Although you can at least wear them around Croft Manor. But there's a specific one I have in mind here for this one. There we go.
Ah.
Now Lara looks like the lost sixth Spice Girl.
Shooty Spice.
Yeah. Also showing off here that just rolling forward is, in Tomb Raider Legend at least, it is the fastest method of movement. In Anniversary, the cooldown was changed a bit so that you can't quite do it as often. And then the swan dive becomes technically faster in Anniversary. But first things first, we gotta annoy Alistair for a bit.
Oh.
All right, did I ever mention that the flashlight has a fancy gadget name? It's the personal light source, or PLS for short. It never really comes up, but...
Because of course they named it that.
You're not going outside, are you?
Not when there are still so many interesting dark places inside.
That is in fact true. Due to time constraints, the entire outdoor garden section of Croft Manor was cut for this game, although in Anniversary it comes back.
I suppose there's no point in my offering to help you get what you need in a less calamitous manner.
I didn't hear you offer in any manner at all, much less a calamitous one, but thanks all the same.
Only as it needs to be.
Some of this dialogue sounds way too similar to Bayonetta, specifically in the first game. Less innuendo, but just as much, bitter, sarcastic sharpness. As we'll see later, I didn't quite line that up properly, but we're also missing one. There's 2 switches here.
Are you sure those bullets won't bounce off that thing and put a premature end to my short and promising life?
Hollow points, Alistair. They practically dropped straight to the floor. I did promise no repeats of that earlier incident, didn't I?
It was my
There was
mistake.
an earlier... Yeah.
Yeah, it was my mistake. I forgot to replace the hollow points with live rounds. My apologies, Alistair. I don't think I've really talked about the controls for grabbing and pulling objects, which are far less intuitive than they seem at first. Especially because of the camera. It likes to swing around, and it's trying to help you, but it doesn't really help much at all. And these switches are especially picky.
Your enthusiasm truly inspires me, Lara.
Don't be sarcastic, Alistair. It's dishonest.
Alistair is just mad after Lara IP banned Reddit, so he can't use it on the Lara Croft Wi-Fi.
I asked Winston to install a handle for you, but he didn't even offer the courtesy of a reply.
He probably thought it was a rhetorical question. I would have.
So in an attempt to recreate the meaningful conversations he used to have on Reddit, he's just now staring at blank sheets of paper. We'll come back here later, because there's actually another puzzle in this room that has not been activated yet.
She's so serious about her work, even her home has a tomb.
You might want to save that joke for once we get around to Tomb Raider Underworld.
Above the waters, twin sisters turn their backs, one upon the other, to leave their umbrages unguarded. Lovely.
And this is the start of the side quest chain that will eventually lead us to the gold reward.
Okay.
Honestly, pretty impressive stuff that those textures are fully legible. This level also, for whatever reason, has far fewer of the Zed fighting glitches that we've seen when using the high definition texture pack. At least when compared to like Tokyo or Ghana especially was really bad about that. There's a couple instances, but it's not nearly as bad. Like, I think the worst it gets is that complete removal of textures at all in Lara's bedroom, and that's about it. This is a perfect example of sometimes you can grab some artifacts with the grapple, and other times you can't. I think I talked about this in an earlier video, but really it just depends on whether or not the developers intended for you to grab that particular artifact from a distance. And over here is the swimming pool, which was that was like the ending portion of Lara's home as it appeared in Tomb Raider 1, because it was just a linear series of rooms, and you would end by diving into the pool.
Oh, that is quite pretty.
Yep, and there's plenty to see and do here. In terms of getting like a clean take for the Let's Play of grabbing everything in one go, this was easily the hardest level just because of how much stuff there is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm going to regret saying that once I get around to Tomb Raider Underworld, because my god, that game has a massive problem with just too many collectibles, and also the way that Underworld has changed the structure so that it basically like a series of much longer levels that all take place within a particular area, divided into subchapters, but they're still connected. And let's just say they're very economical with this, with even the large amount of space that's available.
I'm surprised there's not a brand on that stereo.
I guess this is a good time to talk about the PC port itself. As much as I've been making fun of it, it is still, especially even and perhaps especially when compared to other similar ports of this era. I mean, the fact that it can still run perfectly well without that much tinkering on Windows 10 and Windows 11 as well, I think, is that's a pretty good sign of this port. But
it's workable.
Yeah, the developers were Nixus Software. They also did the PC ports for every other Tomb Raider game since then in the Crystal Dynamics era. Although primarily these days they're actually better known for doing a lot of the ports over from or to PC from PlayStation exclusives. Most particularly, they worked on the Ghost of Tsushima port. They're working on the port of The Last of Us Part 2 that was just announced a couple days ago. They did both Spider-Man games, the Horizon games, and I think they also did that one Ratchet & Clank game that was ported to PC.
So they've had quite a bit of experience with this.
Yeah, then as now, they were mainly known for their PC ports. And they're generally high quality.
More text.
Within the Hall of Knowledge, tomes of cerulean, topaz, viridian, and crimson in turn reveal their arcanum.
Okay, remember those particular colors in that particular order. That's going to come up later. We'll have to revisit the library, but we're not quite done with the swimming pool yet. And yeah, those are the binoculars, I think, over there. The rad mode still works. Well, I think that seam error was actually in the original as well, in the original console versions as well. So we can't blame Nixus Software for that one. Yeah, rad mode still works even with Zip and Alistair otherwise preoccupied. They're just so fascinated that they will chime in even if they're off doing something else.
You could move that.
Already did. Thanks, bud.
That's something I could move. That's a mechanism.
I'm trying to remember what other details. Like Tomb Raider 2 was the first one to really expand Croft Manor into like a full level. Also, I remember the last level of Tomb Raider 2 is actually an assault on Lara's home. I don't think it was that related to the plot. I think it was more like a combat challenge for the very end of the game. But it is technically the final level.
That much I remember of Tomb Raider 2.
Yeah, and then in Tomb Raider 3, we saw initially that whole sort of outside drill course that Lara built. And then in Tomb Raider 3, that is changed into like a playground for vehicles, because Lara has an ATV effectively. So she turned that part of the outside garden of the manor and made essentially a racetrack for her. I don't know if it's an ATV or a quad bike. I'm not really that familiar with the distinctions when it comes to those types of vehicles.
But she is ripping around her backyard like Bam Margera.
Yes. Now, if you're playing this game, don't do what I do. Make sure you go and grab some air before you go into this tunnel. Especially because the artifact here doesn't always like being grabbed when you want it to. And this is actually a hidden entrance into what is effectively a gym. Or, I don't know, more of a rock climbing course.
She is really into this. I'm starting to believe that the Batman comparison is way more apt than we thought it was.
Well, we don't know Winston's last name. It could very well be Pennyworth. I was thinking that his last name was Smith, but no, that's Winston Smith is the main character in 1984.
It may be time to rearrange the furniture.
It would track too, because in the Batman mythos, Alfred Pennyworth is former MI6.
What a remarkable contraption.
Okay, that had to be sarcastic. Like you can I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell with Alistair sometimes.
Can be moved if you want.
We know it's blinking.
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of artifacts around here. Most of it involves, that combination of precision platforming as well as using the grapple to move around certain swing points. Unfortunately, Lara has not yet learned the ability to jump on top of swinging bars, so we'll have to take another route through this area.
I have to admit, this is very clever.
I gotta wonder whether this was, like, at least like the architecture, particularly in this course. Like, I know that a lot of games that, especially early ones with a lot of 3D platforming, would make these debug rooms where they would have like one piece of every type of interactable bit of the environment in them. And I'm curious as to whether this was adapted from that.
It definitely has enough geometry to have been adapted from that.
Yeah, and unlike the previous games that were where they were explicitly tutorials, this is meant to be just a hidden feature, like an extra level that you can explore. I also know that there are certain parts of the manor that you can't access if you try to go to Croft Manor early in the story. Like at this point, where we only have like the final level and a half to do, everything's available to us. But I don't know entirely for sure, but I seem to remember that there are sections of the manor that if you try to go right here after, say, Bolivia or Tokyo, that you just can't access parts of it. It does at least save your progress. In fact, there is no level end marker or anything like that. You just complete the level by saving and quitting. So you can go back and get extra stuff if you need it.
It's just kind of here as a playground.
Yeah. Yeah, this particular sequence could be a bit finicky because you're expected to do certain specific steps in a row. For example. And now we can go back up here. The PSP version of this game added a couple extra costumes that you can use. I'm trying to remember exactly which ones. I know that I think there are costumes that let you play as Amanda, as well as why am I blanking out on her name? Anaya. The one we haven't seen her since Peru. It was Lara's engineering friend.
Lara just shows up, pops in to cause carnage, and then leaves.
Yeah. No, she pops in to get herself into trouble and then be rescued by Lara. Thankfully, you're not judged on time for this, because some of the way that these mechanics combine can be pretty finicky.
Right.
There are time trials, which is the main source of replay value for the regular levels. And that's actually, in addition to the costumes and everything else, the main thing that the time trials unlock are various cheat codes. There are basic things like invincibility, unlimited ammo. There's one that makes the game show up in wireframe, removes all of the grayscaling and textures. And there's another, which I'll talk about in the next video, because it's actually it's a spoiler for the for the end of the game, but it is kind of interesting. The only problem with that, I mean, even I hadn't planned on going through the time trials anyway for this LP, but there's even less incentive because the cheat codes only work if you're using the original texture pack.
What?
I mean, it would be one thing if it was just like the ones that affect graphics, but none of the cheat codes work if you're using the high definition pack, which I find particularly strange. I will describe the spoiler heavy cheat later on once we reach the appropriate point. No, honestly, I think my favorite version of Croft Manor throughout the series is the DLC mission from Rise of the Tomb Raider. In particular, because of how decrepit it is, with the gimmick being that, you know, this more emotionally broken Lara is herself exploring the broken remains of her family estate.
That was very well done.
Yeah. I know that there's also somewhere around here, I think I forget to show it off, but somewhere, that was it over to the right. You saw it briefly. So Crystal Dynamics, the developers of this game, prior to this, they were mostly known for two main franchises. The first being Gex.
This looks like an all-nighter at Richard Simmons' house. Reminds me of Jackie Chan's bathroom.
This is like playing bingo at Jack Nicholson's house.
And the other one is Legacy of Kain. And over to the right, there was a picture of Kain, or a painting of Kain in the corner.
Oh.
So if you remember, do you remember the four colors? Because I've already forgotten from that one puzzle hint earlier.
Okay, so the last one was Crimson. Was it Cyan, Topaz, Cerulean, Crimson?
Well, one of them was Viridian, I think.
Viridian.
Usually I have these kinds of things written down, but I am trying, for the sake of my own mental health, not to be, constantly on top of things all the time and feel the need to be correct about everything. So I am intentionally lowering my standards. I am sure that my dozens of regular viewers will be disappointed over that. Anyway, this actually,
there it is.
this only reveals a silver reward, but more important than that is that there's another message hidden behind it.
Above the hearth, revealed visage and countenance touched in haste, raise up the steward. Fun.
Above the hearth. So there's something above the fireplace.
Yeah. It is actually, we had some what were not yet interactable objects, which are part of a puzzle, but that puzzle won't activate until
It may be time to rearrange the furniture.
after we complete these series of quests. So until we see that final hint, the mechanism for that particular set piece won't activate.
Ah.
And it's these guys over here. I mean, we know what to do. This is a timed puzzle, clearly. So surely if we run over to the other side here, everything will be fine. But nope, we ran out of time.
I'm gonna say I could hear it turning back.
Yeah, there simply isn't enough time to go over to both of those. At least not while, we have to run over to the other side. Except... There we go.
All right.
Now we're getting somewhere. Again, none of these, neither of these faces are interactable before we see that other hint. Although you can at least grab these.
Before the hearth clue.
The risen Athena turns to face the sun, whose burden then reveals her golden laurel. Almost there.
I still don't understand who would build a mansion like this.
I'm sure there are like bits and pieces of the lore that are meant to justify it, and I mean, in most versions of the continuity, Richard Croft, Lara's father, is an adventurer of some sort. And we have the final step. This is the last collectible we have in this level. And then it just kind of ends. You have to go into the pause menu and save and quit out. I do wish there was some kind of end objective to make things a bit more final, but whatever. And there we go. That is Lara's version of Croft Manor. Zip doesn't look too impressed, but I don't know. I guess he has more important things to worry about. Yeah, and you gotta save it first, otherwise it won't carry over. And one other thing is that we've actually now fully upgraded the pistols because of the rewards that we collected inside of Croft Manor. So starting with next video, we will have double the ammo capacity, double the firing power, and double the range. Not that it really helps any, but it's at least something to work towards. I forget whether the Xbox 360 version has any achievements. I guess it might, but it was a pretty early title for the Xbox 360 before achievements and that sort of thing became commonplace.
But yeah, that's a much better Croft Manor than we usually get.
Yep. And next time we will be finishing the game. Time to go to Nepal, revisit some old memories, and we might exactly figure out what exactly happened to King Arthur and whether whether the Excalibur will actually do anything once we put it together.
My bet is just a foam sword.
Oh, that'd be great.